Is this about fairness or about holding power no matter what? This is Go Right with Peter Boykin, the Constitutionalist for Liberty, and this is my perspective. Let me say this clearly as myself, Peter Boykin, a Constitutionalist for Liberty. I did not get into this fight to defend one party over another. I got into this to defend the principles that are supposed to hold this constitutional republic together. What I'm seeing right now should concern every American, no matter where you fall politically. When a state like California creates an environment where investigative journalists, people doing the hard work of questioning government, are treated like the problem instead of the corruption they are exposing, that is not just politics. That is a direct challenge to the First Amendment of the United States Constitution and the very idea that government answers to the people. At the same time, when you look at what is happening in Virginia, where laws are dressed up in the language of fairness, but result in maps that conveniently secure power for one side, you start to see the same playbook unfolding in a different form. Call it what it was or what it is, whether it is the Republicans or Democrats doing it, when politicians draw lines to protect themselves instead of reflecting the will of the voters, that is gerrymandering in spirit, even if they try to sell it as balance, or in Virginia's case, fairness. Now here's where I stand, and I am not going to sugarcoat it. You cannot claim to support democracy or the republic or whatever you want to call it while limiting the ability of the press to investigate you. You cannot complain and claim to support fairness while engineering outcomes that keep you in power. That is not constitutional governance. That is political survivalship dressed as a virtue. And as a constitutionalist, I believe the First Amendment is not optional. It is not conditional. It does not disappear when it becomes inconvenient for those in power. I also believe representation is supposed to come from the people outward, not from politicians inward. And if we allow either of these things to be manipulated, whether through pressure on journalists or through backroom map drawing, then we are not strengthening this country. We are weakening the foundation it stands on. This is not just about Democrats. It is not just about Republicans. This is about whether we, as citizens, are going to hold everyone accountable, or whether we are going to keep making excuses when our side does it. Because the Constitution does not belong to a party. It belongs to the people. And if we stop defending it consistently, and if we start picking and choosing when it matters, then we are the ones allowing it to be eroded piece by piece. So the real question is not who wins the next election. The real question is whether we are still going to have a system worth trusting when it's all over. Folks, this is Peter Boykin, the Constitutionalist for Liberty. I urge you to check out the article on this on GoRightNews.com. Check out PeterBoykin.com, GoRightNC.com, and GoRightMusic.com. Because if you think you know what's happening, I need you to think again. God bless and go right.
Yeah, you feel it, don't you? They don't knock when they change the rules. They don't shout when they gets a softer tone. You don't see it until it's gone and you're standing there alone. And I can feel it slipping through my hands like something I was meant to understand. It's the lines you don't see that decide what you believe. It's the words you can't say that are taking it away. We're still breathing, still alive, but something's fading in the fight. If freedom's real, then tell me why. It feels like it's leaving tonight. They say it's all for your protection. They say it's just to keep things fair. But every step in that direction feels like something's not quite there. Maps get drawn in quiet rooms, voices lost in coded speech. You can vote, but can you choose if the outcome's out of reach? And I can feel it bending out of shape, like truth is something we can rearrange. It's the lines you don't see that decide what you believe. It's the truth they delay that keeps slipping away. We're still shouting, still loud, but something's buried in the sound. If we're free, then tell me now why it feels like we're breaking down. You don't lose it all at once. It fades in pieces bit by bit. One more voice that disappears. One more line that doesn't fit. Tell me where we draw the line. Tell me when we say enough. If we don't stand up right now, will we even stand at all? It's the lines you don't see that decide what you believe. It's the rights you ignore that you won't have anymore. We're still breathing, still alive, but something's slipping out of sight. If freedom's real, then hold it tight before it fades into the night. Yeah, you feel it
Is California's Stop Nick Shirley Act silencing free press while Virginia quietly redraws power behind your back? This is a Go Right with Peter Boykin, myself, the Constitutionalist for Liberty, and this is my perspective.
Remember, we fight for what's right because it's time to go right.
Welcome back to Go Right with Peter Boykin. I am your Constitutionalist for Liberty. This is where we cut through the noise and get straight to what actually happens and matters. Because right now, something is happening across this country, and most people are too distracted to notice it. It's quiet, but it decides everything. It didn't start with breaking news. No alerts, no headlines screaming at you, just a few independent voices asking questions. and suddenly they're being pushed back, shut out, treated like they're the problem. At the same time, in another state, politicians are quietly redrawing the lines that decide who holds power. Two different states, two different stories. But let me tell you something. It's the same fight. Let's start in California. There's a bill moving forward, Assembly Bill 2624. Critics are calling it the Stop Nick Shirley Act. Now, on paper, they'll tell you it's about protection. They'll say it's about stopping harassment, stopping doxing, keeping people safe. That sounds reasonable, right? But here is where it gets dangerous. Critics are warning that this bill could force removal of videos, even filmed in public, hit journalists with fines or legal consequences, and create a chilling effect where people just stop investigating altogether. And that's the key. You don't have to ban journalism. You just have to make it risky enough that people stop doing it. And once that happens, accountability disappears. Because, the First Amendment exists for one reason: to protect your right to question the government. Not when it's easy, not when it's popular, but essentially and especially when it's uncomfortable. Now let's fly on over to Virginia, because this one's a little different, but not really. Voters were given a ballot measure. It sounded simple, it sounded fair. A, quote, temporary fix to restore balance in district maps. But what it actually did was something else entirely. It would have bypassed a voter-approved independent commission. It would have handed map control back to lawmakers, and it would have locked in new district lines for multiple elections. And projections? They showed a massive political advantage for one side, the Democrats in this case. But voters weren't clearly told that. Instead, they heard the words like fairness, which was actually on their ballot. That's where the problem is. Because when language sounds neutral, but the outcome isn't, that's not transparency, that is controlled strategy, folks. And here's where it gets even more interesting. The courts have stepped in, and they said, not so fast. The new maps, blocked, on hold. Why? Because the process itself is now being challenged. There's questions like, was this done legally? Was the ballot language clear? Did voters actually understand what they were approving? So now, even after votes were cast, the legitimacy of the system itself is being questioned. Now, step back and look at both stories together. California, Virginia. Different headlines, same pattern. Control over the information. Control over the representation. And those are the two pillars of our constitutional republic. If you can't question power, you lose transparency. If you can't change power, you lose representation. And when both start slipping at the same time, the system doesn't just bend, it starts shifting away from you and towards those already in control. Now, this isn't complicated. The Constitution already settled this. The First Amendment protects your right to question government. The 14th Amendment protects fair representation. These are not suggestions. They are safeguards. And they exist for one reason. Because government will always try to protect itself. Now, here's the part people don't want to hear. This is not just a Democrat problem. And it's not just a Republican problem. Both sides have played this game. Gerrymandering, narrative control, power plays. It's happened in Texas. It's happened in Illinois. It's happened in New York. And it's happening here in my state, North Carolina. And now we're seeing it again. Because once the rule becomes quote, it's okay when our side does it, then the Constitution stops being the standard and power becomes the goal. Let me say this as the Constitutionalist for Liberty. I didn't get in this to defend a party. I got into this to defend the principles that are supposed to hold this country together. Because what we're seeing right now is a system being adjusted, not to reflect the people, but to protect power. California makes journalism harder. Virginia makes outcomes easier to control. Different tactics, same direction, and I'm telling you right now, you don't lose freedom all at once. You lose it quietly, piece by piece, just enough that people don't react. Until one day, you realize you don't have the same voice you thought you did. So here's the question, and it's not the only one that matters. Are we still playing by the rules? Or are we watching them be rewritten in real time? Because once that line is crossed, it's not about who wins the next election. It's about whether your voice still matters when it's over. Folks, if you want more real talk like this, I need you to go to gorightnews.com, check out the articles. Follow Go Right with Peter Boykin on Rumble, Spotify, Apple, and more. And join the conversation on Truth Social, X, TikTok, Facebook, wherever you can go on social media. You can check out the podcasts on Rumble, BitChute, and YouTube. And if you believe in independent voices, I need you to support the mission. You can send to Cash App at the $ Go Right News. Go Right News. That's $ Go Right News. It doesn't cost a lot for me to run this, but it does cost a lot. If anybody can help donate, that would be wonderful. I'm Peter Boykin. You can stay informed, stay free, and always go right.
You hear that? That's the signal breaking. They don't need to shut it down, they just turn the volume low. Let the chaos drown it out till you don't know what you know. Every frame gets cut in half, every clip gets pulled offline. You can film it in the open, still they tell you cross the line. Watch it, feel it, they're controlling the signal. Control the signal, control the sound, control the voices underground. You don't see it, but it's around. They rewrite truth without a sound. Control the signal, control the game. Different rules, but it's the same. If you don't fight it now, you won't remember your own name. Maps redraw without a vote, but they say you had your say. Shift the lines behind the scenes, and now the outcome's preordained. Call it balance, call it fair, dress it up in polished lies, but the numbers tell the story if you look between the lines. They sell it, you buy it, but something's off inside it. up now. You're just a player in that game, 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 game. You don't lose it all at once. Just a piece, just enough. Say it louder, push it back. Take control or lose the track. Control the signal, control the light, control the dark behind the fight. If you're silent, they rewrite everything you think is right. Control the signal, take it back before it fades into the black. If you don't stand your ground, there's no returning from that.